not quite sure where to start with you, Toby. We had a bit of a discussion last night, and it's not so much winging it. I very much enjoyed your paper. I would highly recommend people read it. The professor has a proposition for government, so you should take Bill at his word and go and start knocking on doors while you're up there today. Okay, so we're talking about AI. You've been talking about AI throughout your career. Indeed, have written many books on it. The speed with which the conversation has changed, has accelerated, has kind of become somewhat more sophisticated, really is quite startling for me as an observer. You've been in this area for a long time. Did it surprise you?
Yeah, it did. I'm really glad that you brought up speed at the start, because I think if you want to look at the impact that AI is going to have upon our society, and I think there's a good argument to be said that it's going to touch a huge number of parts of our society, and it's not unreasonable to suppose it's going to be as transformative as the internet, as transformative as smartphones, as transformative. Some people compare it to electricity. I'm not sure that we can compare it to electricity, but it is going to have a huge, great, significant impact that's going to touch so many aspects of government, of business, and of our lives. But I think what makes it different, what makes it especially challenging, but also the opportunity, is the speed. It's not a coincidence that ChatGPT when it was launched, was the fastest growing app ever. It was in the hands of 1 million people at the end of the first week, 100 million at the end of the second month, and now we're not 12 months later. It's being used by over 1 billion people. It's part of Snapchat, it's part of Bing, it's part of Skype. We've never had technologies before where you could roll them out just so quickly and impact so many lives so fast. When we connected ourselves to the internet, it took a decade or so to get people online. This one is different in the sense that we've already put the plumbing in. People just had to know that ChatGPT existed for them to be able to go to the website, access the API, start using it, start transforming their business. And so I think that is the unique challenge that AI is throwing up. It is going to be very transformative, but the speed that is going to happen, and of course the challenge is that business is quite faster moving, but I'm not sure that fast, and government is not as fast as business.
So let me ask you this. Everyone's had a play around with ChatGPT, obviously, and I mean, particularly in this room. For those businesses, we're a small business. I write for a living. AI is looking at my job, with hungry eyes, I think. What should people...
Not totally. You don't have to be too worried. I think sure, if you're writing sports reports and you just need the numbers, right? You need to know what the score was and you can write a paragraph about it. Yeah, there are tools that are now writing millions of such reports every day. But if you're doing the hard work, the analysis, I think you're still pretty safe.
All right, good to know. All right. Okay, so the conversation, we have this discussion going on. Minister Husick has got an AI review about to land. So we've got all these things around regulation that we're looking at. Australia is probably ahead of the curve in this way. How's in the discussions that you see here and overseas, what's happening in the sophistication of what we're doing here compared to elsewhere in the world? Is there a apples and oranges comparison here, or is it we're all moving at the same pace?
Well, I would have to beg to differ on that we're ahead of the curve, because Europe is the place that's ahead of the curve. I mean, Europe has its AI Act coming into force, has the Digital Services Act, various other things coming along line that are going to provide protections to citizens, is going to provide guardrails to ensure the responsible use of AI and other digital tech. We're still in the consultation phase. I mean, we haven't seen that. I mean, there's a lot of appetite here. That review got more submissions, I think, than was to be expected. It got over 500 submissions. We've yet to see what the response is that going to be. I expect at some point we're gonna get something very similar to the EUA Act, a risk-based process of providing the suitable guardrails, because we do need suitable guardrails. I mean, like any technology, there are misuses of technology, and we are going to have to think carefully about how it is being used to provide, fuel misinformation and change our political discourse.
So we were talking about speed before. Australia, so in a regulatory sense, I think Australia sort of sits between the US and Europe somehow, and sometimes picks up bad practices of both. Perhaps I'm not sure whether that's a fair comment or not, but there you go. So is there the same in the speed of the development of the tech? Do we have the level of urgency in the conversation about regulation? Is that?
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out that whilst there will be some new bits of regulation that we need to deal with, some of the new harms and new concerns that AI and related technologies throw up, there's a lot also about just saying, well, we have existing laws, and some of them need to perhaps be applied perhaps a bit more carefully into the digital space. I mean, there's a misfortunate idea that for the last decade or so that we thought that you couldn't and you shouldn't regulate the tech space. You couldn't because it was different, wasn't physical, crossed national boundaries and so on, and that you shouldn't because that was going to stifle innovation.
Yeah.
And I think we're discovering actually quite the opposite, that you can and you should. That it's entirely possible to regulate, especially when you have tools like fining companies' percentage of their global turnover and things like this. Then they stop and wait and listen to what you say. And that you should, that does require suitable guardrails to ensure. I have many colleagues, many friends at many of these big companies, and they will say to me, they're doing things not because they choose to do things, but because their competitors are choosing to do them.
Yeah.
And if there were suitable guardrails, they wouldn't have to go there.
All right, we haven't even got onto your paper yet, and we've got a little bit of time. Just before, sorry, I should say, we will have opportunities to ask questions of Professor Walsh, so start thinking of them. We'll have a microphone passed around for that. Just before we go to your actual paper, responsible AI, what are we talking about? There's no such thing as responsible AI, there's only responsible humans. What do you make of that statement, which seems to go around a bit?
Well, I mean, as an academic, I always can approach a topic like this by considering the opposite. So, is there irresponsible AI? And I do believe there is irresponsible AI. People use the technologies in ways that challenge us, that challenge our values. I've been a passionate advocate speaking at the United Nations on irresponsible uses of AI in the battlefield, handing over high stakes decisions about who lives and who dies to machines. I don't think that's a responsible way to use the technology. And you end up with this moral, legal problem, which is, who are you going to hold accountable for the mistakes that inevitably happen? So I do believe you can think about irresponsible AI. Therefore, since irresponsible AI exists, then we could argue that AI needs to be deployed in a responsible way. But ultimately, the buck stops with humans, not with machines. Yeah. And that ultimately, you just have to ensure that systems are in place, that there are ultimately people to be held accountable. And that was the lesson from Robodebt. Ultimately, humans have to be accountable.
All right, now to your paper. So you would like the federal government to invest in a bargain basement education of 2,000 AI PhD students, graduates,
yes.
Right? And
yes.
At a cost of?
200, 300 million.
So $300 million.
That's
so at
pocket change.
Well, I mean, it's a cost of a third of, I don't know, what Minister Shorten just said has failed.
Yeah, but let's put it in the context just to show that is actually quite a bargain.
Yes.
PwC did a survey to work out how many people on the planet were like me. So, well, I actually have a twin, so I'm not unique. They try to come up with a count for the number of people who've got a PhD in AI, right? Rather specialized niche. There's only 10,000 of us, which is, if you think about it, remarkable. That a change that is having such a wide impact. You can't open a newspaper without reading multiple stories about AI. You can't turn the radio on without quickly talking about AI at some point. That's being driven by the intellectual work of about 10,000 people. It's hard to think of a transformation. So if and the thing that constrains the use of the technology these days is people who understand how it works, who can apply it to new applications. So if you invested in 1,000 or 2,000 PhDs in AI, I can think of few places where you can capture 10% of the market for $300 million. It seems to me a bargain.
All right, so we don't produce a huge number of IT graduates in this country, computer science graduates. It's so where are you going to find your 2,000 candidates for?
Well, that's where we have to think generously. We have to realize that we're in this it's an international setting, and I get every day really qualified students from overseas contact me and say, "Could I do a PhD with you?" And I think, we're a country of immigrants. Most of the population are people first or second generation. My education was paid for by the British government, and I've come here and worked here and paid taxes and hopefully generated a bit of value to the country, which is an absolute bargain. And similarly, these students would be an absolute bargain for the country, that someone else has paid for their primary and secondary education, their undergraduate education, and we nip in at the last moment and show them a wonderful Australian life, and they stay here, they become citizens, and they contribute to our society in a fantastic way at almost, at such modest cost. I can't understand why we can't see that as a bargain investment.
All right, sounds like you will be banging on a lot of doors up there, because you're going across lots of portfolios. If we're going to have accelerated residency for these students coming over and studying under you?
Yes, I mean, even just getting, even the students that I can afford to employ, the ones from overseas, just getting them visas to get in the country these days is a painfully difficult task.
Oh, yes. Okay. All right. We're going to open the floor to questions. Lisby, I think, has a microphone. Does anyone have a question about artificial intelligence? Dr. Foley,
Kathy.
Australia's chief scientist, has a question of Professor Walsh.
So one of the things that's really important is supervision of PhD students. So if you don't have anybody to supervise these 2,000 students, PhD students, how will they learn?
Well, I would like us to invest in some more academics like myself to help do that. I certainly could supervise more PhD students than I have today. But you're right. You need good students. So we need to invest in staff. My university, my school is constantly recruiting people.
So there's...
And again, those people mostly come from overseas.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, though, is there the room, though, for engaging with the... beyond the university sector, we've got public funded agencies plus also industry. We've got quite a good IT industry in Australia. So is there the chance for more sort of industry PhDs to be able to create the ability to absorb more of this opportunity we've got of students wanting to come into the country and sort of broaden it so it's not just a university supporting it, and of course they have to provide the degree, and maybe supervise other supervisors who are in the industry world.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a role, a bigger role that the industry and various government agencies could have in helping us deliver that.
Right.
I mean, the problem there, some of the challenges there are things like intellectual property, but those are not insurmountable.
Yeah, you can always solve intellectual property issues.
You can. I think people are it's becoming easier and easier. I remember 10 years ago it was much more of a challenge to persuade people about the intellectual property. Those are less, but it takes I think it takes leadership. It takes the leadership of those organisations need to see the value that's going to bring.
All right. Can I ask two other questions? One is, why is it that we're not attracting domestic students then to be your PhD students? They're coming in. You don't have to worry about visas.
Well, that's one obvious answer to that. The PhD stipend, I know it's been increased slightly, but it's still
it's below the minimum wage.
Below the minimum wage, and I'd say to our graduating class, I pick out the ones who are the smartest ones because I want those to do a PhD. I say, you're the smartest person in this class. You have just received multiple six-figure sum offers of starting salaries, to go and work on exciting jobs in industry. Or would you like to stay here and learn less than the minimum salary? You're the smartest person in the room.
No, I just wanted to bring that out since you've got lots of people reporting on this. I guess the final thing is, this is from a diplomacy perspective in the region. We've got a lot of countries that have been dependent on industries that really are not going to last. For example, Pacific Islanders coming in and picking fruit, and then and we're going to be automating that. So, do you think that there's the potential of the workforce coming? I mean, it's a long-term plan, but seeing how you can lift the education levels in the Pacific so that they become digital workers instead of fruit pickers. You know, that idea of sort of thinking differently about where are we going to source these thousands of students that we want to turn into IT workers.
100%. So one of the great initiatives I'm really pleased to have been involved is the Day of AI, that is bringing AI into thousands of Australian schools. One day giving them a taste, trying to excite them, like I was excited by 2001: A Space Odyssey, the movie, got me into AI when I was a kid. And we're actually talking about taking that out into Indonesia and various other places in the region. So we got more support to do that. Again, those long-term investments in our future, in our region's future, would be great.
Fabulous.
Thank you, Professor. You mentioned responsible AI and irresponsible AI. How can you control it? You're looking for 2,000 new PhD students. Hopefully you get fund. I 100% believe in your direction in bringing talents from overseas. They're great talents overseas. They're happy to live in Australia. And I came here 6 years ago. This is a great country to live. But how are you going to control the outcome of that great initiative that you're trying to achieve? Is there any control in your hand in terms of whether it's responsible AI or irresponsible?
Well, we're talking about science, and science is published in the open literature. So, of course, within the particular projects that you might be working on, we work within the norms of the university. So if I touch a human, I have to go and get ethics approval. If any of my students touch a human, they have to get ethical approval. Of course, there's no controls on what people do with my ideas. But that's how science works. I publish the stuff, and the fundamental challenge with a technology like AI is its dual use. There are positive and negative uses of the very same algorithms, and then it's about making sure that we have suitable guardrails within our society, so that people who pick up the technology that we have developed and published in the open literature do so in a way that aligns with the norms of our society.
Hi, thank you. A couple of questions. Number one is, the smartest kid in your class who you were talking about, to what extent might they be making a judgment that not just on the basis of money, but on the basis of contribution, that they could move the dial more by going into the workforce, earning their multi-million-dollar salary or whatever, and contributing in the workforce? And then to that extent, recognizing there may be a shortage of those people, how do we get more people into the course in the first place, forgetting about the PhD level, but into studying the AI technology in the first place? How do we attract them into there? And then a more lighthearted question, recognizing that a lot of people are concerned about AI, students using AI to cheat. Why don't we just ask the AI who's used them, and then thereby reveal who's used them to cheat?
There's a lot of questions in there. The good news is undergraduate admissions this year at my university, 25% more students want to do computer science. And actually, our challenge is we're running into physical and other constraints. We don't have, we get 2,000 students want to study computer science in UNSW. We don't have a lecture theatre that's got 2,000 seats in it. Fortunately, they actually all want to watch the lectures online these days, because otherwise, if they all turned up, we'd be in trouble. But they all want to watch it at 1.5 times the speed online, so we're okay. So our largest constraint is actually being able to teach more. There is actually, I'm pleased to say, a record demand. It's now the demand is higher than it ever was. It's actually it's gone back to above the levels it was at the dot-com boom, which was the previous record, and it then fell down after that. So there's no shortage of people coming in. Of course, there's just a huge, great demand of the output. There's 100,000 unfilled jobs in IT in Australia today. So even if all of those people go off and do useful stuff in industry, there's still going to be a huge, great shortfall. So again, we're not, it's hard for us to make a big dent on that huge, great deficit that we have. A little interesting anecdote. We get lots of businesses ring us up who want to come and do careers days and speak to the students and excite them to come and work for them. And I was talking to the person who manages that, and he said he got another call from another bank, and the call went down like this. He said, how big's the graduating class? He said, oh, I can't remember how many 100 students are graduating this year. And he said, how many are you looking to recruit? He said, all of them. He said, it doesn't quite work like that. There's a few other banks and people who want to recruit them as well. You can't have all of them. But that just shows you the pent-up demand that just one business would recruit all of the graduating class. And then your question about cheating, well, we don't know actually who's using the tool, so we can't actually trace it back to who's using the tools. And it's impossible that OpenAI, the company that has knows perhaps how ChatGPT works best of anyone because they built it, they've actually now abandoned their tool for trying to identify computer-generated content. They've said it's an impossible game. There's not enough information, not enough signal in written text to be able to work out whether it's computer-generated or whether it was generated by a human. And you have to be very careful. We already know there's lots of well-known biases. So if you're writing English as a second language, you're more likely the tools are more likely to flag you as a computer. And the tools have great value. So one of my colleagues was saying his PhD students are now handing in text for him to look over that they're trying to submit to journals. And he said, it's so much better written now. And he's realized his students are so much smarter than he thought they were.
All right, Professor Walsh, thank you very much. That was a fascinating discussion.